Happy Canada Day, everybody, and we have a short, abbreviated show for you tonight, but a lot to get to. Crystal Lake early filming details, the backlash surrounding the Halloween Gun Illfonic report that Slasher Radio and ourselves have added on to. Do we know the villains of Spider-Man Brand New Day? And is Kenobi Season 2 happening? Maybe, maybe not. Some brief wrestling talk. And if you enjoy fabulous threesomes like Johnny does, this might be the show for you.
We all wear masks, but tonight we wear the mask of fear. I am your host, Johnny, and it's truly a pleasure to be with you wherever you're watching from. If you happen to be watching from Canada and watching us live, happy Canada Day. If you aren't, and it's not, happy whatever it happens to be while you're watching this. All right, guys, we got a shorter show for you, at least in terms of us. So we'll keep it brief, we'll keep it breved, and we'll jump right into the multiple choice. First question of the evening for this video. And that is, are you surprised at the fan backlash from the reports from Slasher Radio, and us about Gun and Illfonic taking over the Halloween game? Yes, no, or in the words of the fake Joker Joaquin Phoenix, you get what you fucking deserve. Answer in the comments down below. Before we get started, of course, we got to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors. Ryan over at Kaulignation, where all your NASCAR needs are met, right here on YouTube. Jason at Backtrack Cinema, if you love retro horror, he is the guy for you. And Jesse Storytime Spectacular, where he talks about all sorts of fun pop culture related stuff. And to all of our other patrons, big thanks to you guys. Without you guys, there is no us. If you want to see your name featured in this, head on over to patreon.com/themaskofear and join one of the 5 tiers where you get exclusive content, including but not limited to the first episode of The Curse of Thorn. If you join in that tier, which is now available over on Patreon, where Sean and Matt discuss characters that we've heard were involved in the early treatments for the Halloween TV series. If you join in on the Squared Circle tier, you can check out the first couple wrestling videos. One, we booked SummerSlam, and last week we talked about something.
That one hasn't gone up yet. That'll be
that one hasn't gone. Okay, so there is already another episode in the can
Thursday,
where we talked about stuff that I can't remember from last week.
Fabulous threesomes, you know, Johnny.
Well, you did bring that up quite a lot in that stuff as well. All right, and last Thursday, you and Matt recorded The Legacy of Halloween, or did you not do that?
That's this Thursday.
That's this. Okay. So that's now this Thursday, recording the first episode of the Legacy of Halloween tier, doing the first part of the Halloween Kills behind the scenes mini-series. If you want to join in one of those tier, over again, once again, patreon.com/mask of fear. Now let's put on our horror masks.
It's a double recording, actually. We're
double recording
doing, we're doing the Legacy of Halloween, where we it's part one of our behind the scenes series where we talk about some of the stuff that was scheduled for Halloween Kills that didn't come to be. if you've read or listened to the Taking Shape novels, it's kind of done in that sort of way, with how in the Nobi were with that trilogy. And then we're also actually going to record the second episode of The Curse of Thorn, where we're going to talk about the rumored single player options we were told about in terms of the Halloween game. The tricky part here is, though, these were the rumored single player options when Boss Team Games was still doing the game. Now, whether that applies to Gun and Illfonic, we really don't know yet. But I would say keep expectations low, but we will reveal those details on Thursday, as well as touch on more of the Halloween early treatments for the TV series. We don't have too much more info in regards to that, but what we do have, we're going to talk about.
There you go. If you want to see that and any of our other Patreon content, head over to patreon.com/the Mask of Fear and join any of those 5 tiers shown on screen. So let's move on to the first segment. That is, of course, the horror segment. So put on your favorite horror villain mask or survivor mask or random person in the background of a scene in a random horror movie mask and just be who you want to be in horror. All right. First, your multiple choice question. Which kind of media game did you like more, Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Comment down below and tell us which one of the two you preferred. If you don't like either, option C. All right, guys. Like we said, a lot of time, Crystal Lake is going to be something we talk a lot about heading in towards its production and finally getting it out on the air. So details are starting to come out on early filming locations, scenes, people, things of that nature. Sean, what do you got for us?
So this is an exclusive of sorts. It's coming straight from one of our Halloween sources who had a chance to actually be on set. That's right. And it's not like significant information. We're not saying who lives, who dies, what's necessarily happening on screen. But if you're a fan in terms of production quality and wanting to know what certain things look like or are going to feel like, then this might be the update for you. One of my knocks on the previous Friday the 13th movies in the past is a lot of them feel like these B movies, campy movies, if you will. And I get it, that was kind of part of the Friday the 13th element, but if you watch this channel long enough, whether it's when we became the Mask of Fear or previously as Phantom Empire, you know that I've been championing the idea that if you're doing this, it needs to be done a little bit differently. You need to bring a new lens to this, if you will. You can't just do the same old shtick. That sort of thing just really doesn't work anymore. And if you want the same old thing, go watch what's already come out. And I'm really happy to let you know. I wish I could talk about like actors and performances and storylines, but I don't have anything like that. Not yet, anyway. But that not only are there some original locations popping up from the first Friday the 13th film, that the sense our source got was this doesn't feel like a B movie, a campy movie. There's a level of realism to it, and that A24 really seems to be taking this seriously. And well, it doesn't mean that the production budget is, skyrocketing or anything, but that a lot of thought and effort and care is being taken into this, and that it's not, you're not Ed Wooding it. You're not, okay, that's a wrap. Let's move on. Even though the takes are shit or whatever, it's being treated with respect. It's still very early on. If you're in and around New Jersey, chances are you might be seeing some of the movement going on for this TV show. So, and if you are, let us know in the comment section down below what you've been able to keep your eyes on, even if it's just production trucks moving in and out of places. But this excites me a little bit. I needed a bit of a W when it came to this series, and given some of the other things we've heard about Friday lately. So for me, it's a win, one of my biggest knocks on the new Fear Street movie is if you look at the first three movies, they're done with love and care, and the production quality's there, and it doesn't look like it's just been whipped together overnight. And at times, the newest Fear Street movie, Prom Queen, does feel like that, and that is not how I would describe what I was told about Crystal Lake. So I would say that's a positive.
Randy, what do you think?
Well, it's a good start. I mean, it sounds like everything is trending in the right direction, and that's all really we can really hope for at this point until we get more information. I think it's really cool that they're filming in New Jersey. I think it's really good to hear that we're getting some, at least some production value in general. Even though the budget may not be up there, they're at least trying. They're not just going to sit there and give us a sound stage and try to build around it and do things like that. But again, because it's so early, at least it's a good start. And I look forward to hearing more good news coming out. Hopefully, we'll get some more plot details as in the coming weeks, and things will start to take shape.
Yeah, it's all about execution. I mean, that's the most important thing. It's execution. And if we can get something original that is executed well, it will be better than at least 50% of the previous Friday the 13th movies. And that is something I'm all for. You can sign me up for that all day long. So it's exciting. I'm excited for it, seeing old locations, new locations. Just put the love behind it, put the care behind it, and put the work behind it. And I'm for this. I'm excited for this. It's a good premise. It's an interesting premise, and it's it's the same reason that some of us want to see a vintage Halloween. It's an area where the story is relatively bare. We don't know much about these characters from that time period, so fleshing out those stories and expanding upon them, I'm always for that in any sort of franchise media like this. All right, let's move on to our next topic. We reported it last week. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks, but now we have more, and that is how fans have responded to the reports and news that Gunn and Illfonic have taken over the rights for the Halloween game. It's been a hot topic of conversation over on our socials and Facebook pages, so we're going to turn this over to Sean, who has more on that.
So, as Johnny mentioned, we did that video last week. That was on the heels of the video that credits due where it's deserved. Slasher Radio, to my knowledge, was the first with it, and then it took us a couple of days for our guys to get back to us, but we were able to follow up on a few things. And if you look at our YouTube comment section, between the YouTube comment section and our two Facebook groups, one of them which is heavily populated, I would say we got more than a few hundred comments about this topic. So you're probably looking somewhere in the 300 to 400 range combined. And I kid you not, fellas, 90% of them, not 60, not 55, not 70, a solid 90 to 95% of them were incredibly negative / upset at the prospect of Gun Media, more so Gun Media than Illfonic, but Gun Media and Illfonic taking over the Halloween asymmetrical game that was in development with Boss Team Games. I knew as soon as this came out that it would be met with, divisiveness, and you'd maybe have it split 50-50. And keep in mind, just because we're going off of, a few hundred comments doesn't mean that represents the mass majority of people online. But considering I've paid attention to other groups talk about this very specific topic and other YouTube channels, specifically, you go look at Slasher Radio's comment section about the possibility here. And again, until there's anything official, it's a possibility, not a sure thing. But it's extremely negative, fellas. Like, it's very clear Gun Media, more so than Illfonic, has really burnt some bridges with the fan base in terms of their handling of Friday the 13th and their most recent handling of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As Johnny said with the multiple choice question, to quote Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, you get what you fucking deserve. And that doesn't mean that I think gun media just does bad stuff. I'm not nearly that narrow vision to just rule out everything they've done. Now, I don't think there's much good in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't think it offers much that intrigues me or makes me even really want to play the game. But I will say this for Friday the 13th is when it was in its heyday, for a while, it was the most enjoyable thing to do while going online. And we had a lot of fun with that. That being said, that doesn't mean that you can replicate that exact feeling, which is not the feeling that that game's known for, as fans or former fans of gun media and Illfonic and Halloween fans have come out to let their voices be heard. It's not good, fellas. It's incredibly negative, and to me, I look at it this way: much like baseball, you got 3 strikes with me. Strike 1 was Friday the 13th, depending on how you look at how they handled that. Strike 2 was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which leads you to strike 3. Can they, hit one out of the park? That remains to be seen. They've had potential, but it's more so their support of the games and bad PR that people are providing intense backlash at, really. And at the end of the day, I think that, like I referenced earlier, you get what you fucking deserve. You pay for what you get. And in this case, they as in gun, desperately need a win to change the perception of this going into it. Now, interestingly enough, this is a new piece of info here. Slasher Radio and I went back and forth today a little bit. And they said, they could not confirm, but they said, we may get a gun announcement prior to the Halloween game about a different game they're doing that is much further along in development. It's a double-edged sword, if you ask me, and I'll get your guys' take on it here quickly. We'll have to be quick with it. But whatever this other game is, some are suggesting it might be a new take on the Friday the 13th game, but some are suggesting that this could be a way to get back, move in a positive direction before officially announcing Halloween. I kind of look at it from both sides. Yes, you could get a win, and you're not necessarily at 2 consecutive strikes anymore. But whatever this game is, if it comes out and it's terrible, you can take that 95% negative comments we've gotten across our socials about this possibility, and that probably becomes 95 to 97%. So they're between a little bit of a rock and a hard place here. That doesn't mean that it can't be a good game, but they definitely have their work cut out for them at this point. Randy, what are your thoughts?
At this point, it's like Friday the 13th. Obviously, I love the game. It was a bummer what happened and how they handled it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was not good from what I understand. They did the Predator Hunting Grounds, which was, again, it's wasn't great. The Predator was too tough to even drop, and that's all people wanted to do is play the Predator for obvious reasons. So, yes, now we're at a potential announcement of a game they've been working on previously, and could it be a win? Maybe. I don't know. It really depends on what it is and how much time they've really put into it. If they can get that win prior to announcing the Halloween game, yeah, they can at least have people be like, all right, let's kind of wait and see. This game's good. Let's see what they do. Unfortunately, given their track record with these types of games, I'm not really 100% sure I can still get behind them doing the Halloween game, but maybe some of these people actually care about the franchise and will actually put some time and real effort into it Until that announcement comes out, though, we will have to kind of take a wait and see approach. And if they do announce a new game prior to the Halloween announcement, we'll just have to wait and see what that does, because if that actually is somewhat decent, then at least there's hope for the Halloween game if and when they do announce it.
Yeah, I must stress that our report was never ironclad that it is happening. Our report followed up Slasher Radio's report saying that, our source had heard very similar things were going on. And, you got so much smoke, there's bound to be fire somewhere. It very well, to Dustin's comment in the chat there, it very well could be a Friday the 13th game that comes out before Halloween. It very well could be that, Slasher and us have missed the boat on this one, and that it's not with Gun and Illfonic. And at this point, maybe a lot of the comment section is cheered for that. But to my knowledge, that's not the case. And we should be expecting Gun and Illfonic to take over this game if they haven't already taken it over already. And the other thing I'd mentioned is Slasher Radio was... They didn't think they'd announced the Halloween game already. The information that we got says that they're looking at an October 2026 release date, and you typically don't want to announce this far out. But need I remind people, Trancas has an awful history of announcing things before they're ready to be announced, and that has led way for problem after problem after problem in the history of the franchise. Johnny, brief thoughts.
I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm in the 10%. I don't blame them for how things turned out with Halloween, with Friday the 13th, because so much of that was legal mumbo jumbo that, none of us have the knowledge to properly parse and understand. So I'm going to take them at their word and everything they said, because, legally I have no reason not to. That said, it's either going to be bang or bust. Either they're going to knock it out of the park or they're going to fall flat on their face, and that's going to be it. I don't know which is going to be yet. We've got time to find out. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful, but they have enough rope to hang themselves with me, and I'm hopeful that they can knock it out of the park.
Time will tell one way or another. Again, if you haven't checked out our Patreon yet, patreon.com/The Mask of Fear. If you want to sign up for the $13 tier, you get all the tiers below that as well. We record the Legacy of Halloween this upcoming Thursday, where we take a look at Halloween Kills behind the scenes, done in very much the same way that the Take Shape books were done. And I'll even give you a hint at what one of the topics is for that particular show, and it takes place in the year of 1963. And if you're a Halloween fan, you can draw the dotted lines on the board, the arrows connecting from here to there on what that means. And we will also be recording our second episode of The Curse of Thorn, where we talk about the one-player options. I want to be clear with that. Options. Not one-player storyline, one-player options that we heard were at least in the works when Boss Team Games was doing it. And hopefully, now that Gun's doing it, that we still get something like that. And that's at the $6 tier, or if you sign up for the $13 tier, you get both. And if you're interested in becoming a channel sponsor, you can also sign up for the VIP tier. You can also super chat us during the show. It goes a long way to supporting what we do here and all that good stuff. Johnny, what do we got next, my dude?
All right, guys, it's time to take off your favorite horror mask and put on your cape and cowl, because it's time to talk movies and television. And we're going to start that off with this week's multiple choice question in this segment. Who would you have rather see direct the next Bond movie? The announced Denis Villeneuve or the Nolans? Answer in the comments down below. All right, guys, before we get to the obvious topic teed up in that multiple choice question, we're going to start with Spider-Man. And we know Brand New Day is obviously next around the corner. We don't have any sort of confirmed things, but there was a Disney PR event just recently held that teed up some possibilities for who we'll see in the new movie. We're hearing rumors: Scorpion, Boomerang, Tombstone, Savage Hulk. Is there more than that? Is there less than that? Sean, you got more on that?
Yes, if it will let me unmute myself again. Jeez. This app, I tell you. Yeah, there was two other names. I wish I could remember what the one is. I should have wrote it in the notes. I didn't. The other one, tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. It doesn't sound like a real name, but maybe it is. And it was actually more prominently noted than the ones that you had mentioned there. Silver Samurai or something like that.
Yep. Silver Samurai is definitely a villain.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. They did mention Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, if there can be a deal for the rights to be able to have him appear in there. But specifically, it was Silver Samurai, someone else that I can't remember, and Tombstone was also mentioned. Which, if you watch the Disney Plus Spider-Man series that came out this past year, Tombstone appears in that. It's actually quite a good series if you haven't seen it. So probably, if it's not Kingpin, it's some of the other guys. Some might consider those lesser villains, but if it's a street level story for the most part, why not go that route?
This is the comic book nerd in me, but of all of those, Silver Samurai makes the least possible sense. He's an X-Men villain. He's a Wolverine villain.
Yes, but remember,
to my knowledge,
who's rumored to possibly appear in this movie.
He was originally a Daredevil villain, or a specific version of that. But
I meant Jean Grey.
Oh well, yeah. Well, that's one of the possible. Last we discussed, though, the thing was Mayday Parker was the rumor. I know that Jean Grey has been a possibility for who Sadie Sink is portraying, but I don't know. Silver Samurai is I don't. It just, to me, doesn't work here. He's a Daredevil villain, and he's never interacted with Spider-Man, to my knowledge, ever. And I don't know. It's one of those ones where you sort of dig deep into the catalog and you come up with a guy that might work in something else, but I don't know. I mean, he's not unfamiliar to Marvel audiences. He was featured in one of the cutaways in X-Men 97 in the season that came out last year. He was featured in one of the cutaways in the Extinction series. When they did the cutaway to like Peter and Mary Jane and all of that, he was seen in that. But I don't know. I mean, it's not my idea of a street level villain, So I don't know. I mean, I guess you could make sense. He has in the comics had dealings with Kingpin, so I don't know. Maybe that's the route you take. He's also worked with, in the comics, the interesting one is he worked with Zeke Stane, who, if you watch Ironheart, is played by Alden Ehrenreich, I think.
Alden Ehrenreich plays the son of the guy from Iron Man.
Yeah, Zeke Stane.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's the route they take if he goes down the villain route, which right now in the series he hasn't. But still 3 more episodes to drop this week, and I guess now. Actually, I guess they're out now.
Yeah, no thanks.
I'll watch them. Mostly because I want to see if they do the Mephisto. It's rumored that Mephisto is set to make his debut there, and it would be a very interesting location to debut Mephisto. That's for certain.
I think you mean Mamisto.
I think you Mamisto on that joke, buddy.
Story of my life.
But no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would rather see like Tombstone, or really any of the other ones we talked about there. Like Tombstone specifically, I think he's a great Spider-Man villain, especially at the street level.
Give me Kingpin and Tombstone. And Scorpion. Give me all 3 of them. Although they might think that's too on par with what they just did with the animated show.
Randy, what do you think about the villains?
It's definitely interesting. I feel like You're right, Johnny, in the sense of Silver Samurai definitely doesn't fit. That's definitely someone I would feel like, since they've already used, technically Fox used him with Wolverine, it doesn't make any sense. But an interesting character I feel like they could have used when you're talking street level, and yeah, a lot of people would think that'd be like a callback to the actual Spider-Man game that came out a while ago. You could use Mr. Negative if you really wanted to. If you're talking street level, but Tombstone, I think that works. It's definitely someone who would fit the profile, and it would be also a tough match for good old Frank there, since we're getting Punisher as well. We got to think about that as what type of villain would actually require that type of firepower to come in, and Tombstone definitely fits the bill for something like that. But as for any of the other rumored villains, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because there's so many characters they really haven't introduced yet that they still could use. A lot that we've seen, like with the animated series and comics, video games. Obviously, we can't use someone like Kraven or hell, if you want to really throw people for a loop, go back to the animated series when they actually introduced Blade into that. That was an interesting choice for the animated series. That at some point we got to get Mahershala Ali's Blade involved somehow. But it's going to be interesting, since stuff's starting to trickle out. We're getting more and more information, more casting news. It's going to be interesting to see who they actually have these people playing. And honestly, one thing we always know is that even we have to have a good villain. It's the only way Spider-Man works sometimes, because we've seen previous Spider-Man movies where the villains are just god awful and it just tanks the movie. So, and it's obviously not the Marvel movies. We're talking Sony here. So yeah, I'm excited in general, just because I like the series that Marvel's put forward. And it's just going to be great to finally see a new Spider-Man movie. I've been waiting a while now, since No Way Home.
I mean, if you go back to May, which is in the world of film and television is a long time ago, but it was Jeff Snyder who was saying Mr. Negative was the villain. So I'd say that's pretty
as good of a source.
I'd say that's a pretty great source. Now, whether or not that's 100% accurate, or if he's just going to appear, no, that was tied to Steven Yeun, who I want to say I don't think he's in this any. Did he pull out of this?
I don't know. That might still be up in the air. I hope he's in it. He's a fantastic actor.
I feel like he pulled out of this, but I could be mistaken. And that was sort of one of the leading candidates for who he could be
had
playing.
to use that choice of words, huh?
Stop it! Stop it! I mean,
got it on the mind, people.
I didn't. It was purely innocent until you made it dirty. But he reported that it was a main male villain and a secondary female villain. That was what Jeff Snyder said on an episode of The Hot Mic somewhere around the end of May. So we'll have to wait and see. Time will tell. We'll get more and more details as things start coming out. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. So let's move on to our second topic, which obviously the multiple choice question could not have done a better job teeing it up. And that is James Bond is circling its new director. And all of the trades, all of the main reports, everything from Variety to the Hollywood Reporter, everybody is saying that Denis Villeneuve is the next guy to helm the James Bond franchise. So what do you think about that? What were your first reactions to Denis Villeneuve as the next director of James Bond? Are you excited? Are you in that decision? Are you confused? Where's your brain at knowing that Denis Villeneuve is the next guy, Sean?
Go to Randy.
Randy?
Well, the nice thing here is that you're getting a top tier director creating a film for for a very storied franchise that this is huge. This is very huge. Now it's just getting your new Bond. But honestly, just having him direct, knowing that he's gonna pay attention to details, and I'm kind of hoping that I mean, you don't come in and direct a movie like this unless you're not a fan. So I would assume he's also a fan. So this is one of those types of uh, hires that really, takes the movie where you're like, okay, we know we're getting a new one. What's it going to be like? And it automatically, my expectations are a lot higher than they would have been with anybody else. So unless you get someone like Christopher Nolan or someone like of that caliber, it's gonna be. I mean, I'm already, like I said, I think it's gonna be really good. I'm really excited for him to do it. Now it's just him picking his Bond, and if he nails that, I mean, my expectations are to just get that much higher than they already are. So, all in all, very excited. Really curious to see where he takes it, and I can't wait to see who he picks as his Bond.
Well, I think that's one of the problems we have here is he's not going to be the only person to pick the Bond. The head people over at Amazon are going to have a massive say in who picks the next Bond too. Right now, they're leaning for someone 30 or under. Now, I got to stress, I've seen a lot of, oh, well, this person's 31 or this person's 33 or this person's 35, so they can't be it. Give your heads a shake, people. There are 31 through 38-year-olds that look like they're 24, 25, 26 still. There are fits that will be older than 30. The one name that I've seen brought up that I do not like, I do not agree. I like him as an actor, but I do not think he would make a good Bond. I do not want to body shame anyone, so I don't want to say Bond can't look one way or another. But for me, Tom Holland is too small in stature. He has that baby face he just can't seem to shake. And he was one of the names brought up. If you're dead set on under 30, may I suggest Tom Glenn Carney from House of the Dragon? British, fits all their needs, and is a fantastic actor. But this is Denis Villeneuve, and if he gets his say, he's probably going to lean into someone who has some gravitas. Think about what he did with Dune, his two Dune movies. You got Timothy Chalamet in there, Oscar Isaac, who the hell is Aquaman's guy again in the Minecraft
Jason
movie?
Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
Zendaya, Stellan Skarsgård,
yeah,
Josh Brolin, Javier
yeah.
Bardem. I don't think I need to
Austin
keep
Butler.
going.
Even go to Blade Runner 2049. He brings back Harrison Ford, and Ryan Gosling carries the movie. This is someone who wants a well-groomed actor with the ability to carry a movie. And one of the first names that jumps out at me, and he still looks young enough to pull off a young Bond, is Robert Pattinson. He was fantastic as Bruce Wayne, or more so Batman and Bruce Wayne. We really don't see much of Bruce Wayne in that movie, to be fair. But the movie that comes to mind for me, even though it's the storyline of the movie, I'm still trying to figure out years later, is Tenet with from Christopher Nolan. I look at his character in that movie and I go, yeah, that's got Bond written all over it. So there's a bunch of possibilities. I just don't think Tom Holland is my favorite, but Denis Villeneuve is one of the best directors on planet Earth right now. He's got a near flawless track record, and one of the movies that I want to do a watch party on this channel too, hopefully soon, and I don't think either one of you've seen it yet, is Blade Runner 2049. That for me is what Star Wars should look like in today's world. And it is just a badass movie. Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Dave Bautista. Um, it's really good.
I honestly can't say any of the names being touted as the next Bond do it for me. Because they just don't. They don't have
I
that.
should also stress before you get into it, there's a bunch of names that were also on the list that I've never even heard of. So yeah.
Well, the Variety article had the wish list of 3. That was the top 3 names: Jacob Elordi, Tom Holland, and Harris Dickinson. None of those guys are James Bond to me. They just aren't. They don't have the, like you said, they don't have the gravitas to be James Bond. Like, if you want to, I'm all for the idea of, casting younger for Bond. I think they do sort of need to freshen it up. But let's be honest, James Bond has been an iconic character in pop culture since the 1960s. I think this solution, and I've seen this done, as crazy as it is, I've seen the story in fan fictions and, boards and Twitters, Reddits and all that. Like, if you want to go young and you want this type of James Bond as your guy, very simply, he's Bond's kid. He's the son of Bond. That's the easiest way out. You can cast your older Bond who has the, the stylistic look for who you want as a James Bond, and introduce a new younger Bond to carry the franchise. Like, it's not, to me, that's sort of what these guys evoke. Like, I look at them and I think, oh, they could pass for Bond's kid. Pick one of the Bond girls from one of the films that still, carries name value and gravitas. I don't know which one that would be, but like, pull one of them out and have them, have a kid with James that James didn't know about. Like, it's a better story to me, I think, to tell that than to. I can't take Tom Holland serious as James Bond. Like, I mean, I couldn't take him serious as Nathan Drake, and he's much closer to that than he is to James Bond. And I Jacob Elordi, I just think of all of like the Hallmark style Netflix movies he's done. Like that. Like the guy who was in The Kissing Booth. That's not James Bond.
With all
Like,
due respect to Variety too, it's way too early on in
oh
the
yeah,
process
I'm sure there are a lot
to
more
be
names
down
than
to
those
3 names. Like,
Oh,
Denis
absolutely.
Villeneuve might not get his specific pick. By the way, he does not get final cut on the film either. I was reading an article where they went with Denis Villeneuve, basically because they were going to get Amazon was going to get final cut on the film. But for the record, the runner-up was apparently some combination of Christopher Nolan and the Nolans, and the difference was the Nolans were going to get final cut on the film, and Villeneuve wasn't, and Amazon went with them. Look, Denis Villeneuve, the Nolans, Edgar Wright. There were some other names mentioned that we talked about last week. All those guys are going to have some sort of significant say in who your next 007 is. So it's just too early to cut down to 3 names. But I'll back Johnny up 100% on this. Tom Holland just does not work for me. By the way, this is also a film they want out by 2027. Not only is Denis Villeneuve busy with Dune 3, Tom Holland's quite busy himself. My mention of Robert Pattinson, he's also quite busy. So, availability could play a factor here too.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the Bond is going to come out of left field, or it's going to be somebody obvious. Somebody who isn't quite as busy these days, who used to be someone who was very super busy, who, let's be honest, could pass as James Bond for everyone. It doesn't exactly take a rocket scientist to realize that I'm, of course, talking about Superman, or should be Superman, Henry Cavill. He is the obvious choice. I'm sorry, but him not being at the top of every and any wish list is ridiculous to me, because even though he is older, he still plays younger. Like, let's be honest, if you show Henry Cavill to someone who doesn't actually know how old he is, you would probably guess somewhere in his 30s. Because, it is what it is. He carries, he has the physical presence of James Bond. He has the suave appeal of James Bond. And let's be honest, the guy looks pretty freaking sweet in the tuxedo. And if you were to have asked me even before I Googled it how old he was, I would not have guessed 42. I just wouldn't. I mean, I know that he is that, but, I would have guessed he was in his mid-30s. But, because he pulls it off. Like, I'm sorry, but to me, he's the guy. Hands down, he's the guy. It should be him. Like, I'm sorry, but if he's not in your top 3, this even as an Amazon guy, like, if he's not on the Amazon wish list, what are they doing? But I digress. We will, I'm sure, be talking about this again a great many times over the next year, and change until.
Did Randy say anything on this?
Did you? I thought he did.
I did. I went second because you told me to go
second.
Because
I tried to pitch to you first, and then you kicked it back to Randy. That's what I thought.
Also, it's not the Superman roles or anything that make me want Henry Cavill as Bond. He wouldn't be my first pick either. I'd take Pattinson over Cavill personally, but I'd still take him as Bond for sure. He's fantastic in his Mission Impossible movies, but he also did a Netflix movie recently with the dude who played Aquaman in Smallville and plays Jack Reacher. Can't remember the actor's name. And that whole movie is kind of a bit of a take on Ian Fleming. So he's already got a little bit of that experience unofficially. I forget the name of the movie, but it was fantastic.
I don't know which one you're talking about. Looking at his.
I can't hear a word you're saying. Google the movie for me, please. Just say it. I can't read that.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
The Ministry? The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare or something like that. It's a mouthful on Netflix, but it is a really good movie with a really good cast. And I strongly suggest if you're looking for a movie to watch, there's a lot of comedic tones in it too, is to make yourself some popcorn, get a nice beverage, watch that movie. You will find yourself highly entertained and probably convinced more than ever that Henry Cavill can play James Bond.
For me, it's like it's as crazy as it is, it's him playing Sherlock in the Enola Holmes movie that sold it for me. But I hadn't heard of that one.
It wasn't in theaters very long, but I'm glad to know it's on Netflix because I missed it when it was in theaters. So I was pretty excited to go see it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really fun time. There's a bunch of other cast members in that are fairly popular too that I'm blanking on.
You sure you want it on Netflix? Because I see it on Amazon Prime in Canada.
Maybe it's Prime. It might not be Netflix. I can't remember.
Either way.
It's one of the streaming services.
Yeah, there you go. There's so many of them I can see. I can understand why it's hard to keep track of them.
Enter streaming service here. You'll find it.
Yeah. Just Google it. You'll find out which streaming service it's available in your area. All right, guys, let's move on to our next topic. We are, of course, talking the Batman 2, or whatever they end up calling it, because I don't think they're going to call it the Batman 2, because that's just a horrible name. It's bad.
You're right. The plans to call it the Batman Part 2.
That's not better.
I disagree.
I don't know.
We could call it the Dark Knight Rises for you to tickle your feathers. No. Okay.
Are you trying to make him quit?
Maybe.
All right. Before we go down that rabbit hole, the script for the Batman 2 is now reportedly done. We really don't know anything about this yet, really, do we? Just that it's done?
Look, I want the new Superman movie, and believe me, this is getting back to the Batman Part 2. I want the new Superman movie to be good. But James Gunn has done absolutely nothing to impress me as the head of a studio. There's a big difference between being a good director, a decent writer, and being the head of a studio. There just is. Just ask Kathleen Kennedy how well that's worked out for her. And the way that James Gunn made it sound for the last fucking year and a half, it was as if there hadn't been one finished draft yet for the Batman Part 2. And I don't know if it was Mattson Tomlin throwing some shade at Gunn or not. The picture's not on screen. This is one that Matt Reeves shared. But Mattson Tomlin, co-writer on the project, shared his notebooks, much in the way Rian Johnson does when he's working on a project. And you've seen draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, draft 4, draft 5. So the idea that there has never been one finished draft on this project is bullshit. And that is exactly the perception that James Gunn has given. Let's make no mistake about this. When you talk to Jeff Snyder, not that I get to do that all that often, Jeff is kind enough to reply once in a while in his DMs, but he has said James Gunn does not want this movie to go forward. He just doesn't. He wants to get to his Batman. He wants everything in DC to be in his universe. And Peter Safran is like, no. The Batman was wildly successful, critically and financially, and Matt Reeves is a genius, and we're going to let him do his thing. It also should be noted, Matt Reeves is going through some real health difficulties at the moment, so maybe people can be a little patient with him. You know, that's got to come before work or leisurely things. But even now that Matt Reeves and Mattson Tomlin have made it official out there that, yeah, they have, for what, you know, they consider the final draft of the Batman Part 2, and they've had this for like about a week now. James Gunn was asked if he had read it yet, and his answer was still no. He hasn't gotten around to reading it yet, and that he hopes to do it on a plane ride if he's not too tired. It came across as the most smug, I'll get to it when I get to it, unprofessional bullshit I've ever heard. And I also heard an interview with James Gunn today where I just thought to myself, you know, you got fired from Disney for previous comments that you made before you were even there, but they were still kind of shitty comments to make, especially in this cancel culture we all live in. But when you come out and say, you know, sometimes I find myself getting pissed off at things that are written online, and then I remind myself, oh, it's probably just some 12-year-old boy from India writing the message. This is an actual video that's out there. You are not fucking doing yourself any favors in the PR game. And he put his foot in his fucking mouth again today. I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say about James Gunn. I've seen 4 clips from Superman. I think 2 of them are great. And I think 2 of them make George Lucas's prequel trilogy look like Oscar-level writing. And that's not an exaggeration. So it's a mixed bag for me at this point. I think Johnny's felt that way for a while about the movie. But, you know, it feels like he is openly going against it. And you're supposed to be the co-head of a studio. Pull your fucking head out of your ass. Now, we've kind of buried the lead here because we do have another channel that's been inactive for about a year now, The Legacy of Westeros, where we cover a whole bunch of Westerosian things. And Johnny's made the odd appearance on there. Randy's been on there. Our buddy Zach is a mainstay over there. Same with Ryan. Even my wife's been over there. Mattson Tomlin said now that this is done, he can turn his attention to the Egg on the Conqueror show. And not that I want them to do too many more shows in the past for the Game of Thrones franchise, if you will. That's one of them that I do think needs to be done. You need to do something with Aegon the Conqueror. There's too much rich material there to not do. So for me, it's fuck James Gunn, go Matt Reeves and Tomlin, and bring on Aegon the Conqueror. Sorry for taking so long, fellas.
Randy?
Well, I'll keep it short and sweet. Let's fucking go, because I've been trying to be very patient and waiting, for the sequel to the Batman. And now that the script is done, I'm even more excited. So, James Gunn can kiss my ass. We're getting this movie, whether he likes it or not. And honestly, I can't wait. I love the first one so much that, uh, that this is, I was so blown away by Pattinson's portrayal that it felt like a Batman movie. It felt like Batman. And when I say that, there's always that feeling you get when it's like, yes, this is Batman. This is Star Wars. This is Halloween. This, there's just the feelings you get when you watch certain things or read certain things or play a video game. That just gives you that feeling of like, this is what it needs. This is what it should be. And the Batman was exactly what it felt like it should be. And I have no doubt that Matt Reeves is going to deliver again with the sequel, and I just can't wait for it. I'm excited.
For me, I didn't see the Batman until it was out, on a streaming platform. It was better than I thought it would be going into it. I didn't exactly have high hopes of Robert Pattinson because, he's still sort of, my first immediate reaction is still Edward Cullen. Not that that's inherently a bad thing, but, it doesn't help when you're trying to be the Batman. But it was better than I expected it to be. I mean, I did have some issues with it, but they're me issues. They're more of the comic book nerd in me who, didn't like the look of the Riddler. That just bugged me. The gimp suit Riddler just didn't do it for me. Because it's ridiculous to me.
I didn't like the look either. To back you up on that one, the actor, who I can't remember his name, was fantastic in it, but the look not so much.
I wasn't exactly a big fan of the Joker look either that they tried to introduce. But that's something that can be, tweaked and fixed by the time he gets around to getting his own story. And I do like the idea of finally having a Batman and Joker that isn't an origin story. Every time they've ever met on film, it's been an origin story for them. It's their first time interacting with each other, but here they clearly are, have already faced each other at least once since the Joker is in Arkham and nobody else but Batman puts him there or could put him there. So I haven't watched The Penguin yet, but it's top of my watch list. I'll probably watch it this summer. So I'm cautiously optimistic for it. I enjoyed it better than I thought it would, better than I thought I would, the first one. And I'm fine with this. I think James Gunn needs to realize that the things that made him endearing as a director, that quirky attitude, the quips and the quick wit, worked great when you're not the guy at the head of the totem pole. When you're the guy at the head of the totem pole, that comes with certain responsibilities and, a degree of respect, which is one thing, while Kathleen Kennedy definitely has her misses as, the head of the studio, she's never really been openly negative towards anything. Openly. She's kept her critiques private. Now, granted, 90% of those have gotten out because it's the era of social media and it's hard to keep stuff like that quiet. But publicly, she has said, pretty much all of the right things about the projects. So I'll give her that one, where James, his comments about the scripters, they're not the right comment. I understand like the point you made. He wants to get to his version of the Batman. Well, sorry, buddy, but you came into this knowing that this existed. You came into this knowing that there was a very real possibility that if it was successful, it would, you'd be stuck with it and it wouldn't be something in your control. And let's be real, his best option would have been to fold it into his overarching universe, which wouldn't have particularly been all that difficult.
Yeah, Matt Reeves doesn't want that, apparently.
And I understand that from his perspective, but he also needs to realize there's more at play, and that's a studio thing, and the studio should be sitting him down and saying, either get on board or get off the train. And it should have been done for both of them. Get them on the same page or get off the train. Because let's be honest, I'm fairly certain that regardless, a Batman movie is going to make money. It would have to be the worst thing in history for it not to. So they could they could have scrapped this and started fresh. And I don't think it would inherently be a problem because of that, going through the James Gunn change and, creative universe shift and starting fresh and, fresh coat of paint, all that stuff could have done it. Paint this in a different universe and move on, leave it behind. You'd always still have the fans clamoring for more, but we still have fans clamoring for the Snyderverse, for God's sakes. And I'm going to be honest, that was garbage. Absolute trash. It was I would rather, and I'll say this, I've said it before, I would rather watch the 1967 Batman movie versus the Batman of the Snyderverse. Okay? I'll say it.
Yeah, I'm also a little bitter at James Gunn for not totally, canceling the Smallville animated sequel, but basically saying this needs to wait while we're doing our stuff. And it's like, this fucking series wasn't even going to have Superman. That's not the direction they were going with it. And, yeah, I don't know. He definitely has a big ego. And at least he's not going out there and saying we have no source material.
That's that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Yeah. We'll talk more about this, obviously, as we go forward, as it gets closer and closer. And the same with Aegon over on the Westeros channel. So let's move on. Let's take off our cape and cowl and put on our Star Wars masks and helmets or whatever you want to wear. And we'll start with this. Your multiple choice question. It's a yes or no. It's very simple. Comment down in the bottom. Will the Rey New Jedi Order movie ever be released? Yes or no? Simple as that. So now let's move on. In the last week, we've been seeing some, let's call them less than reliable sources on the internet who are claiming that season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi is now confirmed to be in the works. Now, obviously, we've talked about the show a lot here on the channel. If you want to scroll back and go back into it, Sean and myself were doing 3 a.m. live streams after every episode of this series because we were crazy, slightly younger, but equally as crazy. So you can scroll down the channel and find those if that so piques your interest. But we've been talking about it since then, that the only person who was really clamoring for season 2 was Ewan McGregor, who has always sort of said he'd be interested in playing Obi-Wan again. And that's sort of been, kind of his stance for the better part of the last 20 years. He's always wanted to put the robes back on and be Obi-Wan Kenobi again, which I appreciate from him. But are you putting any stock or faith into this now that it's out there? Obviously, knowing these sources, let's say, not the most reliable of sources. Are you buying? Are you selling? Is this something you're even interested in, Randy?
I think if it's well done, I'm all for it, only because I would really like to see the training he went through with Qui-Gon. I think that is something, because clearly, we need to see what finally turns his hair white. Consider all things considered, it's a pretty interesting transition from when you think about what we got in, A New Hope, and to where how old Luke is, versus where we see what we see in Obi-Wan and how old like Luke and Leia are. So it's really that what happened in that time span between the time of that and Luke turning 18 that we find that Obi-Wan just went completely white? Was it part of his training? Was it just something that happened? It's kind of a silly curiosity, but it's a short amount of time. It's like a 6-year gap that's not going to happen in just 6 years unless you go and undergo some seriously stressful things. Obviously the training aspect of it all, him learning how to become one with the Force and commune with Obi-Wan and things of that nature, and maybe even get a live action version of the duel that we saw in the Twin Suns from Rebels, because it would kind of fit in within that 6-year span. So, I mean, that's a big ask for that, but would I want to see it? Sure. Will I watch it? Yes, because I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. The real question is will they put the time, passion, and show the respect it deserves? And I just don't know, given what we got out of the one and only season we've got so far.
Sean?
So a few points. Not to come across like Mr. Know-it-all, because I don't mean to do that. I just want to make sure we get the info correct. There's 9 years between the end of the Kenobi series and A New Hope. But still, I've always been someone who said, okay, so how did he go from this to not so much just the white hair, but brittle old man who can barely move anymore? And I know you got to, suspend your belief to some extent, because that's an elderly Alec Guinness in that role. Look, Daniel Rickman comes up with a report, and I cannot believe how many major sites run with it. It lets you know how many people do not pay attention to the Star Wars reporting, scooping game, or whatever. No one, and I mean no one, is more accurate than Bespin Bulletin. There is your number one. Your number two, who hasn't done much over the last year, making Star Wars, who Johnny and I have spoken to in the past on our Star Wars Wasteland show. And number three, Jeff Snyder. I'm not saying that correct reports can't come from anyone but those three, but I am saying if you go look at Daniel Rickman's track record of his own reports when he's not piggybacking off something else when it comes to Star Wars, we're not talking about a guy who's right 60% of the time, 70% of the time, 50% of the time. We're talking about a guy who's right probably less than 10% of the time. So that alone worries me right there. That being said, Ewan McGregor said a few months ago that him and Disney were in talks about season 2 and they would see where it went. I'm a huge Obi-Wan Kenobi fan. That is my favorite character in Star Wars. But you cannot bring back Deborah Chow for this project with how season 1 went. I'm not saying season 1 doesn't have its redeeming moments. I think the first episode's amazing. I think there are elements of acting in it, which is great. I think Ewan nails the role through it. But it's a lot of shortcuts. It's a lot of, fast forward storytelling, poor set design, lazy set design. One scene of Andor has more care in it than the fucking entire series does or season did for Obi-Wan. So to me, you need a story that's worth telling. You cannot bark up the Vader tree again. I'm not saying Vader can't be in it, because he could be in it with his own side storyline. I, in fact, think that would be a good idea. I think it would be a lot better than having Reva positioned as a side storyline. You could have Vader, but you cannot have Obi-Wan and Vader cross paths again. As for Qui-Gon, I don't think you're getting Liam Neeson back again, period, from what he said. But if anything, maybe just as a voice. And, you can CGI the rest or whatever. I still don't think you have him appear on screen. So then it's a matter of what could this be? I like the idea that it's his training, likely with the Wills, to become a Force Ghost as some sort of focused element on it. But you need a story worth telling. Because I don't want to see a Kenobi story that you're telling just for the sake of telling it. There needs to be some weight there. There needs to be something to bite onto. Even though the Kenobi series fell short in a lot of areas, we could bite onto the fact that it was the rematch of the century, At least the second fight, not so much the first the first fight. But again, I would love more Obi-Wan, but it's got to be done under the right circumstances. Frankly, I think the character is far more likely to appear in season 2 of Ahsoka than season 2 of Kenobi happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been around the channel here long enough, you know that, when it comes to rumors and reports and things like that, a solid 90% of them are ones that funnel to me through Sean, because it's not something I typically go out of my way to find. I like to have my experiences be as sort of spoiler free as I can when it's not necessary to know them, for coverage here on the channel. And, to a degree, in past films, we've sort of, yo-yoed around whether I know stuff, whether I don't know stuff, depending on my experience. And this one actually crossed my timeline. I can't remember if it was Twitter or a Reddit thread or a Facebook page or somewhere. Either way, this report came across my page and I laughed. I just straight laughed. When I saw the source of the report, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because like you said, and my first response was, or my first thought was, oh man, it's 1999 and we're having, who was the leaker for the completely made up everything?
Super Shadow.
Thank you. I'm thinking, oh great, it's Super Shadow all over again. But no, seriously, I laughed because to me, I like, in theory.
Hang on. Now you've given me an idea.
Okay.
We need to go to that website where you can go back to previous internet pages back in the day and reload what it looked like back then, and just look at some old Super Shadow posts for not even just a Patreon stream, just a slow day out here, and just have a good laugh about it. I guarantee you we'll get some laughs.
Idea is permanently logged in perpetuity in the Facebook chat.
Thank you very much.
Because that is a ridiculously good idea. I love it. But no, seriously, I laughed at the idea of this because as much as I love the idea, don't get me wrong. If we wake up tomorrow and there's a report from Disney, Ewan McGregor returns as Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm going to be happy because I love Ewan. There's no two ways about that. Whenever he is comfortable putting on that robe, I'm for it, even if it doesn't get executed the way I hope it will. I was more pro season 1 of Obi-Wan Kenobi than you were, even when we were doing it. I had my issues, but they weren't quite as many as yours, and that's fine. But I just like you said, I don't know where you go from that. At the time, we sort of pitched around a lot of ideas for how you can get from here to A New Hope, but I guess from here to I guess it would be Twin Suns would be the next time we see him, right? The Clone Wars
in terms of TV or whatever. Yeah,
the timeline. Yeah.
So sure, you kind of have to go from him to Alec Guinness, and to me, I don't sort of need anything there because that's just it's a casting difference. Hayden Christensen looks nothing like David Prowse, and that's not an issue for us. It's fine. I can sort of wash that one away in the laundry. It doesn't bug me. It's not something I need explained that, oh man, he does this ritual that turns his hair white and that's how he age. I don't care. That's a level of detail I don't need. But if Ewan gets excited for a story, I'm all for seeing it, even if it isn't the greatest story. Even if it doesn't end up working as well as it does. Because if there's one thing I will always give Ewan McGregor is his passion for Star Wars. That is something he's never lost. It's never left him. Even when things don't go the way he wants or aren't as receptive as he wants, he still sort of has that effusive love of Star Wars every time he speaks about it. His eyes kind of light up a little bit, and you can see the fanboy in him. So, any opportunity to have Ewan back, I will take, and I'll be happy to have it. And, I hope that this is one of those ones that, comes from a source where you're just like, you're full of shh, and turns out to be true. Because even a blind squirrel finds a nut. it happens. It's a fact. Like, and don't get me wrong, I would be happy if this is one of those, nuts that get found by the proverbial blind squirrel. So I love the idea. I want a story that makes sense, something that includes Qui-Gon and learning and things of that nature. I'd be for. We also sort of tease the idea of bounty hunters trying to come after Luke for some reason. That makes sense. So I don't know. It's all about the story you tell, because as much as I would love the idea of, as much as the fan in me would be like, oh man, Kenobi Vader, love to see it again. As much as I love that idea, I don't need to see it again, because you did everything you needed to do in that. That's not something I need to see again, period. So I don't want Vader anywhere near, if there's a season 2, as a main player. Like, if he's sort of in the wings and he's discussed or has a sub story,
give him the side plot. Yeah,
exactly. Like, if he has a side story there that's sort of about, tracking down other Jedis, I'd be okay with that. But like, I don't need Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan facing off against each other again, because I personally would want Obi-Wan to stay landlocked this time. I don't want to see him leave Tatooine again, because the more times he leaves Tatooine, the more times you shake your head and go, why are you even here? So as exciting as the idea is, not something I'm all that interested. It's something I'd be interested in, but it's not something I'm all that excited for. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't, no hair off my back. All right, so let's take off our Star Wars masks and put on our Lucha masks, and we're going to do this very quickly. Night of Champions was this past weekend from Riyadh, and we're going to talk about it very briefly right now. But if you want to see the rest of it, head over to Patreon. Randy, in 1 minute or less, Night of Champions.
without spoilers.
Without spoilers. Oh, okay. It wasn't bad. I mean, there were some surprises, a couple surprises that kind of caught me off guard, but for the most part, everything kind of fleshed out the way we all probably thought it was going to. A little run in heavy, but that's the Triple H era in general now. Other than that, I felt like this could have been something done in the US because it really didn't feel as special as it could have. But I'll give him credit for going over there and putting on a show, regardless of everything going on in the world. But it is what it is at this point. There's definitely some good matches there, some good surprises, and some really, I saw that coming a mile away surprises. But that's wrestling in general nowadays.
Personally, I prefer the Riyadh shows. I like that venue better. It's not quite as open, and you can actually hear
it is a really
crowd.
cool venue.
So
it really is.
You also didn't have 10 rows of Saudi oil sheiks this time. Also a bonus. Sean?
I got to give them credit for there being more wrestling on this card and not as much filler. That was very obvious. 6 matches, but like the matches also, they weren't all super short. Predictable, most of it, I would say. Obviously, I'll say my thoughts on the main event for Patreon, but I will say this. I thought the main event was quite good, but I think the parts of that main event that people probably love are the parts that I think took away from it, and I won't elaborate any further.
I'm going to paraphrase an NFL head coach. It was what we thought it was. If you don't know Dennis Green, Google him. Yeah, it was what I thought it was. It was what I expected it to be. And if you want to hear more, check out Patreon. But I'll say this, SmackDown, better than Night of Champions. That's my honest opinion. If you want to hear more about Night of Champions, Patreon, Squared Circle tier, and you can see the rest of our Night of Champions review once we record it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope you all had fun joining us. If you're in Canada joining us, thank you for spending some of your Canada Day with us. If you're not, thank you for spending some of your time with us anyway. And if you want to see more of the exclusive content, head over to patreon.com/themaskofear and join any one of those 5 tiers and see the content we have available there. And if you want to be featured as one of our sponsors right here, Jason at Backtrack Cinema, great stuff if you love old horror. Ryan at Kaulignation for NASCAR related news. Jesse's Storytime Spectacular for all of your favorite pop culture stuff. And to all of our other patrons over at patreon.com/themaskofear, we appreciate and we love each and every one of you at whatever tier you are able to contribute to. And if you're not able to contribute over on Patreon, then please make sure you head down, click the like, subscribe, thumbs up, all that. Leave a comment to help us further our goals as far as the Facebook algorithm. You can check out part 1 of Sean's Knights of the Old Republic AMA playthrough on the YouTube. I don't know when he'll be back with part 2, but check out part 1 and watch him prove everything I said about, all of the evil things that he does, even in the essentially prologue parts.
Sadly, my laptop was dying, or else I would have went probably another hour or 2 the other night. There's some stuff going on at our house right now, which is making it hard to do that sort of thing at the moment. So it might be another week or 2 before I'm back at it. We'll see. I'll try to squeeze in a playthrough before then. But it's fun. Looking forward to doing more.
Randy, tell them where they can find you.
Well, obviously every Tuesday is here. On X, it's at Giggity Giles, and obviously part of the Mask of Fear Facebook group. And obviously we are been making some Patreon videos here and there. Hopefully you've enjoyed them all. Thank you for watching and listening. Other than that, yeah, that's where you can find me.
And you can find me here every Tuesday night for the Mask of Fear live. And occasionally you can catch me over on twitch.tv/bros before pros when it's not so goddamn hot that I can actually turn my studio lights on and play a game. So it is hot even doing these recordings right now. All right, guys, everyone, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. It's time to take off our masks of fear and put back on our everyday masks. We'll see you next Tuesday night right here on the Mask of Fear.
He totally meant his 3 sub masks.